I'm David Goldsmith. They've asked me to be the Master of Ceremonies for today. I know that if I don't do it quite right, JB will let me know some way or another. So anyway, I'd certainly like to welcome you all here today. It's great to see all our gliding friends and JB's family and friends here. It is a historic occasion, opening the JB Memorial Shed. The shed is the culmination of the dreams of one man and his vision for the Geelong Gliding Club and the Australian Gliding Museum. A man who spent many years actively supporting gliding in many ways, and we'll hear more about John, or JB as he is universally known, shortly. I'd especially like to welcome members of JB's family here, some who have travelled long distances to come. Their support continued through the completion of the project that John had started and is very much appreciated. Welcome also to all our gliding friends and their supporters with whom we share this wonderful sport. Many have their own thoughts and fond memories of John and stories about him, so we all share that. The program today is for us firstly to hear from the President of the Geelong Gliding Club, Mike Durant. Colin Pools, on behalf of the family, will provide some background about his cousin JB, who, as we know, could be a man of few words himself, so there's a lot we don't know. But following that, sorry, can everybody hear, or is it? Following that, Colin and Yvonne Buchanan will present a beautiful painting by Yvonne. Our club president and Colin will then perform the grand opening, declaring the JB Memorial Shed open, and following that, family members will be planting JB's ashes in the garden being constructed along the south wall of the JB shed. After that, we hope you'll join us for lunch, and thank you for coming. I'd now like to introduce the President of the Geelong Gliding Club, Mike Durant.
Good morning. So, yes, I'm Mike Durant, President of the Gliding Club. I've been in this club for 30 years, and JB predated me by probably something like 20 years. So there's a long history here. And I think Wayne Mackley at the back there is probably of a similar vintage to JB. So we've still got people here who were here when JB joined this club and are building on the legacy that JB provided to this club. It's great to see all the members here. We've also got people from the dark side, over the power side of the airfield. So nice to see the chairman of BMAN here as well. New hangar is named after JB. The reason it's called a shed is because hangars are more expensive, and JB had an eye to a dollar. So hence it's going to be known as JB's shed as opposed to JB's hangar. Gliding was a large part of JB's life, especially in the later years after his retirement. JB joined the club in 1965, was an instructor for many years. He was also active in maintaining the club fleet, in addition to flying and maintaining as many syndicate gliders. I think he had something like a share in half a dozen or more gliders on this airfield at one point, which proved to be a little bit of a problem for Colin and his family, but it was amicably resolved to the satisfaction of everyone. And we really appreciate the family's support through all of that. In later years, JB ran day-to-day operations on most weekends and was ever present out here. Always active at the various club camps and events during the year. There was a regular competition competitor at Horsham Week, and often in Janus, because again, he could get the other pilot to pay for the launch. And there's a bit of a common theme here with JB. Not that he was tight, he was just economical with his money. He's one of the key people who set the culture for the Geelong Gliding Club over many decades through his mentorship, lived example and commitment to development of the club and its members. JB had a particular style that focused on recycling of materials, could also be called hoarding, not paying for labour if you could do it yourself, and doing, not talking. Outside of the Geelong Gliding Club, JB is best known for being instrumental in development of many of the facilities here at Bacchus Marsh, including designing and leading the build of the two large hangars which are down to the west of us, which now house a fleet of 40 gliders from all three clubs. These hangars and JB's shed are on 40 acres that are jointly owned by all of the three gliding clubs at Bacchus Marsh, and this land and facilities have been developed by club members from all three clubs over many years to support gliding. It includes the club room, several large hangars for gliders, tow planes maintenance facilities, and the Australian Gliding Museum next door to us. JB's shed is the latest development and the final legacy of JB's prolific contribution to the Geelong Gliding Club and gliding at Bacchus Marsh. JB donated the funds and initiated the construction of the shed in 2015. JB's main reason for donating this new shed was to create a facility where Geelong Gliding Club pilots could learn the art of maintaining gliders, associated ground equipment such as our glider trailers. The large size allows club members to de-rig and rig gliders out of the weather and to maintain multiple aircraft over the winter months. And there's some examples of that here where we've got club members maintaining one of our older gliders. Down the back we've got Mike Golf, which JB donated to this club for the juniors, as well as some Australian New Zealand gliders down the back, and you're welcome to have a look at the gliders around the shed later. JB extended the design of the shed to also enable the Australian Gliding Museum to store some of their exhibits and to house a new gliding simulator which will go down the back. It will enable the next generation of pilots to learn and enjoy gliding. JB was the owner-builder of this new shed until his untimely passing due to cancer. He kept a very close eye on the builders and was often out here in all sorts of weather through the build. At the time of JB's death in 2016, the shed had not been completed. And like many people, JB had not left a will clearly documenting his intentions. Geelong Gliding Club did not have the funds to complete the remaining work, including extensive fire protection required due to the size of the hangar, which you can see across the way there. JB's family, and in particular his executor, Colin Pauls, stepped in and donated the funds from JB's estate to complete the hangar. The significant contribution by Colin and the family, who are here today, enabled JB's vision to be completed and is greatly appreciated by the Geelong Gliding Club and the Gliding Museum and future generations of pilots who will use the simulator. As always, JB could not do this alone. The immediate past president of Geelong, Dave Finmore, led the club through the period when JB secured allocation of land, managed the shed build, and finally passed away. And Dave's here with us today. Patrick Dunn then stepped in and project managed much of the remaining work, especially the power connection and fire protection design and implementation until he moved to South Australia to pursue his career. And finally, Kevin McGowan managed the final stage of the building approvals process to get the last few issues resolved. As always, gliding is a team effort. In addition to the shed itself, there's now a large capacity CFA-approved fire protection capability available on site, which will be leveraged to protect other assets on this site, including the gliders. We look forward to formally opening this facility provided by the generosity of JB and his family. Geelong Club members will now be able to perform maintenance on club fleet and comfort, as well as supporting the Australian Gliding Museum to preserve our Australian history, not to mention enabling backsmash clubs to train the next generation of pilots in the simulator. And I'd like to hand back to Dave now for the rest of the proceedings.
So thanks for that, Mike. Colin Pauls is now going to give us a little bit more background about the man himself. So I'd ask Colin to come to the microphone next.
Okay, before we start, the relatives of John, stick up your hand so everybody knows who they're talking about. Hey, what about you? If there was any generosity, I was the one, because giving away somebody else's money is easy. David told me not to talk more than an hour too, by the way. My recollections of John and his family go back to his father and his father's brother. In the 40s, they came up to their mother's funeral in Horsham by hire car and went and left very quickly after. And we didn't see very much of that side of the family at all, because things were a bit different in those days, transport, telephones and so forth, and I think they were that sort of people, like John was, very close. Very noisy, by the way. Then when I got married, it was found out that John's mother was in the dress trade, and we went and visited the family up in Tacoma soon after we got married, 5 minutes I think it was. And John's mother had a dress shop in Belgrave, and the father had a shop in Tacoma, and I think we probably helped their pockets a little bit at that stage. And then later on, John's family shifted to Heathmont, and once again a dress shop. And I know that we have spent the odd time there, not that much, but there was. And then John used to come up to Horsham to the gliding competitions, and he'd arrive at our business, my business, and he would have a short talk, and he'd say, well, when are we going to see you again? I don't know, I'm pretty tied up with gliding, so he would be there for a week, and you'd probably see him once if you were lucky, and then he'd disappear again. I know more about John now than I did any time during his living. After David said about, I think it was David, said about John going to hospital, I got a phone call from the hospital and telling me that I'd been nominated as one of his, I think, favourite cousins was the word, or closer cousins, I'm not sure the exact word, but anyway. And the hospital doctor told me that he was going to be put on life support, perhaps, but that there was no hope, and I said, withdraw life support. And they didn't have any decision to make in the end, because he died about 1 o'clock in the morning, and they rang me and told me that. Then we found out he didn't have a will. Now this is a message to every person here. If you haven't got a will, you're an idiot. He died on the 19th of February 16, and he was buried on the 29th. And as recently as his will's actually finally done after 5 different solicitors. But as recently as last week, I've had a phone call from accountants, and the solicitors haven't quite finalised his last tax return, so we'll see what happens there. So you might have to fork out your lot. John, it was talked about being fairly economical. Well, you had to see the house, his mother's house hadn't been lived in, I think, for 26 years. And it was basically as she walked out. And one of the things my wife found very early in the sorting of some of the stuff was a letter that she'd written to my Auntie Marge in 1979 in a pile on the floor. And we had, the whole house was like that, and then we had John's house in Frankston. And just a little aside here, John was very economical with motor vehicles, and some of you will know about his old Daihatsu ute up the back that had to be propped up on wood so they could get it started each time. And then he had his good car, was a Toyota that had done quite a few miles and very old. And the paperwork that was on the desk in Frankston, I'll start again. Talking to the neighbours in Frankston, because when I went into the house, before I went in, I had to go and visit the neighbours. Because I had the keys to open the house, but I didn't have the savvy to neutralise the alarm. And I went to the police station first and told them. And I went and visited these people and told them. They said, "Oh, John, well, he used to arrive at 3 o'clock in the morning, you'd hear the old girl come. And he'd sometimes leave about 6, 7, you'd never see her. 3 o'clock in the morning, who'd do that?" Anyway, in our search in the home, I found 2 speeding fines. One was at 2:35 or something, and one was at 2:58 a.m. So he did move around early in the morning. We cleaned them all up and sorted out a few things with the Gliding Club, and I have to say that the gentleman to my right, Mr. Goldsmith, Captain Goldsmith, I suppose they'd call him at one stage.
Long time ago.
Yeah, was a terrific help. Initially, when John had died, David and I don't know who he took with him, but I gave them. They had the keys, and I asked them to go and visit the house and see if they could find any information that I needed immediately. And whoever it was that went with you, Jenny, did a wonderful job, because to have a look there, it's quite a trip too. So anyway, on behalf of the family, it's a pleasure to hand this over to this facility, to the club. And hope you'll enjoy it. My young cousin over here, I usually call him old, but I'm praising him now. My young cousin over here, his wife has actually painted a picture of John, and it incorporates John's life. And I'd like you, Yvonne, to uncover it now, if you wouldn't mind.
I painted this out of a collection of photos that I gathered from partly off the website, partly out of family photos. And you probably would recognize the photo, the main photo of John in the center, because it was one that was available on the club site. I tried to incorporate this shed, because at that particular point, the photo was in the build stage. His work as a treasurer with the club, and of course his van.
Much better.
Him as an actual glider pilot, and a picture of one of the gliders, of course, is wife. So my effort
Well, I'd ask the family group to just stand up quickly, and the official photographer will take a picture of all the good-looking ones, please.
Oh, we're all standing in front of you.
I've just been advised by our authority that I should clarify a couple of things. My mother was John's father's sister. And he grew up in Horsham. The father grew up in Horsham and left early, went to Melbourne, and I'm not too sure, he was a solicitor or something to do with solicitors at some stage. And in the clean-up of the house, I'll just tell you as a matter of interest, because it's been a pretty interesting exercise for me. Apart from the fact you must have a will, I'll say it again. Under the house, I found, I think it was 108 12-gauge shotgun cartridges, about 60 or 70 303 rifle bullets, and 2.5 boxes of Colt 45 bullets. Now the story goes that the father, when he was a solicitor, probably got involved with a few dubious people, and he was warned to have a pistol under his pillow. It was suggested that it probably was hidden under the house somewhere, but we never found it.
He wasn't a solicitor.
He was involved in a solicitor's. There was a rifle down at Frankston, which was registered, and I've been involved in a lot of shooting in my time too, and have a few registered firearms, so we had to get permission to shift it to Horsham and transfer the registration to my son. So I don't think there's anything else to tell you, and thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you very much for that talk, Colin, and thank you very much, Yvonne, for this wonderful presentation, which is going to be very highly valued within the club, as John was. And the reminders that you've got in there, that's the icing on the cake. It's absolutely fantastic. So I think it's worth another round of applause there for the So I'll ask Mike and Colin, please, Colin Balls, to declare the shed open.
I can see in and out. Bam.
Yep.
There you go.
Yeah. Ta-da!
Colin and the family will come with us, and then anybody else who would like to see John's ashes interred in the garden, and we'll go there. Otherwise, lunch is provided here, and tea and coffee making facilities. And just finally, thank you all for coming. It's an absolute pleasure to see such a great crowd of people. Thank you.
You stand out in the middle of it, like today, like this path is coming in, bit of it. Seriously, come on.
Okay.
Doesn't matter.
Yes, it's a ceremony, but I mean, it's like, yeah, it's like,
Find the high cup.
I just need a small. But still, yeah.